Hey everybody, welcome to Local Business Hacks Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Case, and I'm on a mission to help you. Every week, we're going to be talking to local business owners and experts to get their best tips, tricks, and hacks to grow your business. This show is designed to teach you, inspire you, and motivate you to take massive action and start to build your future-proof business. Whether you're just starting off or you're taking your existing business to the next level, this episode is for you. So let's get started. Hey, local business hackers. I'm your host, Director of Global Business Development at Referrizer, joined today in Colin C. Campbell's podcast studio. Colin is a serial entrepreneur, founder of the Startup Club, and author of Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. Awesome book. Colin, I'm so happy to be here. Welcome to Local Business Hacks.
Well, I'm happy to be here as well. I mean, this is an exciting show. I really like the angle you take with your show, where they're practical advice that startups can use, because that's what the book gets into. It really talks a lot about those practical things we do. And we even have a chapter called Minor Majors, so we'll get there.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. So talk to me about this journey. I know you own a ton of other organizations. I'm currently sitting in Colin's incubator in Fort Lauderdale, where there's a lot going on. Talk to me about this journey, starting from a young age to get to this point.
I started right out of college, went to work on the family farm. You know, I actually worked that summer. That combined with some credit cards, some student debt, and a loan from my mother, I started my first business. It was actually a software rental business in 1993. And this rental business just took off, but was outlawed on January 1st, 1994. Okay, so first business started up and 13 months later was shut down because of NAFTA, and Bill Gates had convinced the government to put this clause into the NAFTA agreement. Luckily, my brother and I, we'd also started something called a BBS. This was a bulletin board service before the internet. And we launched that, and it grew to become the second largest bulletin board service in Canada. But something else was happening in the marketplace, something called the information superhighway, the internet. And so we launched into a company called Internet Direct. But unfortunately, we didn't have the money and we couldn't get the funding to keep our BBS alive. So we shut our BBS down only 2 years after opening it up, and you put all the resources, all those phone lines, into a company called Internet Direct. That company exploded. It became the number one fastest growing company in Canada. Now, at the time, I was 28 years old. We were trading at it was a publicly traded company. We're trading about $80 million in value. And we decided to merge with a local cable company and apply for a license in Canada, the wireless license for all fixed internet for Canada. We won 50% of that license.
Wow.
It was incredible. The stock, which I owned about 13% of, soared to over $1 billion at 28 years old. Well, don't be high-fiving too fast.
I love it. There's a lesson in there.
Here's where the wheels came off the bus. Do you remember what happened in March? You might be a little too young for this. In March of 2000?
Well, the world thought the internet was going to shut down.
No, not Y2K. You're very close. But a few months after, a judge, back to Microsoft, a judge decides they're going to break up Microsoft, and the NASDAQ falls from 5,000 to 4,000. Our company pulled the $50 million offering because they thought the market was going to come back. Well, guess what? The market didn't come back. It went down to 1,200, the NASDAQ. It was the dot-com crash.
Wow.
Now, we had done something very stupid when we merged our company. We merged it, but we agreed to an 18-month lockup. So literally, during that 18-month period, see, nothing could go wrong. The internet was just growing like mad. There's nothing could go wrong. We just got this huge valuable asset, this wireless license. Stock traded at $19 a share at its peak. I was able to sell it for 6 cents a share. Lost 95% of my wealth because I spent 10 years building this company and 10 weeks selling it, and I never sold it correctly. So you're probably asking, why are you interviewing this guy right now whose first three companies actually went down? And that might be a good question to ask. Fact is, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat was born out of that. And there are lessons that I learned from that. For instance, bad things do happen. The dot-com crash did happen. The tech wreck, crypto crash in 2022 did happen. Bad things happen. That's the first thing I've learned. The second thing is I learned liquidity or control, which means I would never sell a company again unless I was in control. See, we had sold the company and agreed to a lockup. We never received cash. We received stock in the new entity, but we were locked up for 18 months. I never had control of the company. So those were two big lessons. Now, fast forward 6 years later, we do another IPO. My brother and I love technology and how it changes the world. So we launched a company called Hostopia in 2000. 6 years later, we do an IPO. 2 years after that, we sell to a Fortune 500 company for 17 times EBITDA. And this time it was all cash, 100% cash.
There we go.
So we're learning our lessons. Now, fortunately, we had also sold a company called Two Cows, TUCOWS, in 1998. And that's what gave us enough money to launch Hostopia as well. Well, at Hostopia, we launched a company called Geeks for Less. We needed a lot of programmers. In fact, we grew the company to about 600 employees. And we launched an offshore facility out in Ukraine. And today, it's actually, I still have ownership in that company, and we're up to 800 people. It's called Geeks for Less. They do, if you need programmers, it's a phenomenal company. I worked for a Fortune 500 company for 3 years. So when we had sold Hostopia, I sold myself off and I committed to doing that. And that was very tough for me, very tough for any entrepreneur. And that's something you might think about if you're ever exiting a company. But then we, in 2012, after I'd left the company after 3 years, I did my commitment, I did my time. And in 2012, the internet was deregulated by ICANN. And that deregulation meant that you could now apply for a new domain extension. So we applied for .club, which would compete with .com, .net, .org. All right? And this grew to 1 million domain names, and we sold that off. Today, we have about 10 companies. Our incubator, a company that does 19 Airbnbs, a company called Escape Club. We have another company called paw.com, which is a fairly large e-commerce business for pet products. In fact, we were on Inc. 5000 3 years in a row. And, you know, we continue to start, scale, exit, repeat. The one thing that I learned from this experience and from doing the research for this book is that there's patterns that exist when you start, scale, exit, repeat. When you start, you need great people. You need enough money to get to your first point. You need a great story. And you need systems. You need KPIs. You need to be able to understand your business. That might be one of the true local simple hacks you can offer, is simply understanding your KPIs. And especially if you have leading KPIs. So for instance, the number of leads per month that you've generated that will ultimately lead into proposals, which will lead into sales, which will lead, and then you can actually begin to track and figure out where your trajectory is going and where to invest your money if you have the right KPIs. Then when you get into scale, it's a whole different story for story, people, money, and systems. I'll tell you one thing, there's a lot we go through.
Yeah.
And very few businesses in America actually scale. 99% are small businesses. And there is a formula that you can follow. One of the things that I really went deep on is something called the X factor. This is something unique and different that you have in your market that nobody else has. Think of Domino's Pizza, 30 minutes are free. They came out with that and they dominated the market. Think of National Car Rental. Just show up and take the vehicle right off the lot without lining up. They eliminated a bottleneck. We did at Hostopia. The bottleneck that we eliminated was the fear of mid-level executives of losing their job. See, we sold a software platform of email and hosting for small business to telecoms. And we were working on a contract. It was an Atlanta contract with a company called Earthlink. I don't know if you remember the company or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do remember some of those old names, right? It was basically a $10 million contract, 10-year contract. And the day before they were going to announce the winner, we were told we lost the contract. And so I flew to Atlanta and with my CTO, And went to his office, and he said, okay, let's go to lunch. And he only had a 2-seater vehicle. It was a Wego, a tiny vehicle. So I said, okay, no problem. So I said, you sit in the front, I'll go sit in the trunk. So I went in the trunk of this vehicle, and we drove to the restaurant. Here's a CEO of a publicly traded company sitting in the trunk of a vehicle. Just the imagery, right? Whatever. And we said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give you a 100% migration guarantee. See, the number one thing that mid-level executives feared is losing their job due to a migration. So we said, we'll give you 100% migration. And when we said guarantee, this was $350 per website we lost. Now understand, there's 80,000 websites.
Yeah.
You can lose a lot of money if you get it wrong. We had to re-engineer our entire systems, our organization. We had 200 people working in Ukraine. We developed heuristic software. We became the best in the world at migrations. And guess what? The dominoes began to fall. We won AT&T, we won Vodafone, we won British Telecom. We completely wiped out our competition. And today that company still leads in providing those services in that market. That is an X factor. That's the key to any business that wants to scale. If you can crack it. Now, it took us 7 years to get there. So don't panic if you don't have it right now. And it doesn't have to be in big companies either. Like, for instance, we were doing a strategy planning for our Airbnbs here in South Florida. And we caught a few good ideas, but I wasn't too happy with it. So I called the team back and I said, team, let's do a strategic planning session. But here's the question I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask you, what can be our X factor? See, we have properties on North Captiva, a number of luxury homes. And we're different in that we're hotel grade with Westin Heavenly beds and all that kind of stuff, which is pretty cool. And we're on the island and we have a consistency. You could almost say that's an X factor. But then we started coming up with ideas. Well, what if we had a miniature golf course that only the people who rent the homes from Escape Club can access? I know we're talking about a small business here, but when people are zooming around on the golf carts, there are no roads on this island. They're zooming around on the golf carts and they see this miniature golf course. They're going to say, oh, how do I get in? And it's going to say, access only for these following homes. Now that is an X factor because now you've got something that no one else has. I know that's a very simple idea, but it can make a big difference. And then we added on, well, what about the dock? We can give the dock and they can have the access to the boat rental and only people who rent from that house can have that as well. So that's what we're talking about. Think of something unique and different.
That's awesome. I think it's really cool how you talk about how most businesses don't scale, especially in America. At Referrizer, we're supporting now over 1,500 brands across 82 countries.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and those KPIs, are bread and butter for organizations. And then when it comes to scaling, SOPs, how can I train somebody on a process and a role instantaneously through heavily documented materials?
Yeah, and you could use ChatGPT to help with that. I don't know if you've used that for SOPs yet, but it's an amazing tool. Like startups that embrace ChatGPT or AI, not just ChatGPT, you've got Jasper and others. Companies that embrace AI, the startups, they're going to scale.
Oh yeah.
The companies that ignore AI are going to fall behind. But we're talking about small businesses here as well. We're talking about doctors' offices and dentist offices. We're talking about every single small business should be thinking about how they utilize AI to improve their growth. There are just so many things you can use AI for. For instance, I've already written, I know I shouldn't do this, and please get legal advice. I've already written 2 contracts within seconds. Now, they're employee contracts, and I wanted to get them done, and they had the right jurisdiction, everything laid out, and I don't know how many, it might have been 60 seconds it took me to write those. I'm having a fun interview because I'm obviously promoting the book and we're doing a lot of podcasts. We're getting out there. I'm having a lot of fun and I've been testing with ChatGPT, the voice, and I'm having her or it, sorry, my voice that I have is a female voice, but I'm having it interview me live on Clubhouse. So we're doing a live interview. I don't know if anyone's ever done this before. And I have no idea what the questions are going to be. We're doing it this Friday. And you just thinking out of the box like that, coming up with ideas. There was a session that we did where we had this marketing executive, probably making a couple $100,000 a year. And we asked her to come up with a motto for Startup Club. And she came up with a decent motto, but it was like sort of a little long worded, sort of like a community coming together to find her, whatever it was. I can't even remember it, to be quite frank. Then I asked ChatGPT to come up with 5 mottos, and one of them was fuel your startup journey. So simple. Fuel for your startup journey. And just thinking of that and how it can perform as a CMO, at CMO level for your business. My wife and I own a school. It's really my wife. She owns and runs a school.
Montessori school, right?
Montessori, yes.
Awesome.
And by the way, she uses, on our title tags, best Montessori school, Fort Lauderdale. And it is rated by greatschools.org as the #1. So
that's awesome.
You can validate the best. So I love your best trick, the way you said that earlier. And that can actually help drive a lot of traffic. And that's probably a good local hack right there.
Oh, yeah.
But she had not updated her blog since 2021. And I'm like, why aren't you updating the blog? I said, I'll write you 8 articles right now. I spent literally 10 minutes. And when I write an article for a blog using ChatGPT, I like to say, give me the top 12 reasons why, or 12 tips, or 8 reasons. I like it to break it out like that, and it does it in a very nice format as well. And I said, give me 8 reasons why AMI Montessori is different from other Montessori schools. And AMI is a very high-end Montessori. It's come from the Montessori herself. She was actually the one who founded the institution. So it's very high standards. But it came out with like a very good answer. And I showed her every article, and she said, this is unbelievable. Because it was very specific. It had a knowledge of AMI, and it knew the difference between them and other Montessori schools, and the educational requirements, and master's degrees, and all this kind of stuff. And it was just phenomenal. And I think I took maybe about 10 minutes to do all 8 articles. Right now, I actually am a Forbes contributor as well. So I tend to write out all the articles myself, and then sometimes I'll put that into ChatGPT to edit. There is some pushback from yesterday. I was getting from the person who represents me with the newspapers, is that they're saying now they don't want any ChatGPT. You can use it for ideas. So there was a little bit of pushback that it's got to be original material from your brain.
Yeah.
Here's the confession. Okay, so this book, Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, was submitted to Forbes last November. We talk a lot about AI in the book, especially catching the next wave, and we really try to cover how you can succeed in a tornado, what Jeffrey Moore calls it, and he was interviewed in the book as well. He wrote Crossing the Chasm. So we really try to cover that, but here is a confession. None of this book, 0, used ChatGPT, but in February, they asked me to come up with an inside cover for the book, right? An inside cover for the book. And so I went to ChatGPT, I put the introduction into ChatGPT, and I said, write the inside cover of a best-selling book. And it came out almost perfect. How do I know that? In the summer, the Forbes team used that inside cover as the Amazon description. And I pushed back at them and I said, guys, I noticed you've been using the cover, you're using this Amazon description, but you're the experts. Why don't you make it better, improve it, and do your own thing? And they said, no, it's perfect. And that was right from ChatGPT. We're talking it can deliver at a very high level. So
let's read it.
All right, let's go for it.
Unlock the secrets of a serial entrepreneur and launch a successful startup. Get inside the minds of dozens of experts, authors, and seasoned entrepreneurs and learn from their hard-earned lessons. Discover the winning patterns of successful businesses and apply them to your own startup. Amazing. Build a competitive edge and protect your business with proven formula to scale up, add zeros to your revenue and profits, and crush the competition. Avoid common pitfalls and master the art of hacking your way to growth. Maximize your wealth by securing the right funding, navigating potential buyers, and cashing in on a big exit. With expert advice, you'll learn how to start, scale, exit, and repeat multiple companies. Don't just dream of success, make it a reality. Get your hands on this ultimate guide to entrepreneurial success today.
Yeah.
How do you tweak that?
Exactly. How do you beat that? And let me tell you, this book took over 10 years to write. In the last 2 years, we have a staff of six, and we interviewed almost 200 people, of which about 50 interviews are in the book. It has been an extraordinary project. Like, we have worked so hard. The team's worked so hard.
That's awesome.
We wrote the book for ADHD entrepreneurs. What do I mean by that? It's got 58 chapters. It's got dozens of illustrations. It's got 200 call-outs. It's really designed. It's color-coded. The entire book is color-coded for start, one color, exit, repeat. You can see the colors. You can see the type of illustrations
Awesome.
we do. Try to make it simple, make it easy, and make the chapters very short. Although it is a large book, and the publisher came back to us as we were writing it and said, you guys got to make this book shorter. You're already double the size of our average published book. And so we said, we'll try. So we tried cutting back, but I couldn't cut the funding part. I couldn't cut the people part, how to profile people, how to find a business partner, how to come up with an idea. I just couldn't cut back. I was able to cut about 30, 40 pages. So we got down to 470 pages. It sounds like a lot, but it's written in a way so you take it one step at a time, one chapter at a time, one concept at a time. And let's be quite frank too, starting, scaling, exiting, and repeating that over and over again, that's not a simple thing to do. There's a lot of components. There's no one single thing you can do to be successful in business. You got to do 100 things. You got to do 100 local hacks.
Yeah.
Right? That's it.
I think in a testament to it as well, you have 10 years invested in this, but if you put together everybody and how much time they've invested in start, scaling, exiting, and repeating, you got hundreds of years of knowledge from people that have paid the idiot tax more than you would ever want to.
Yeah.
There's the value.
One of the stories we have, and I got to know Joe Foster from Reebok. He's 88 years old right now, and his story's phenomenal. In 1979, he hit $9 million in revenue.
Wow.
Now, guess what he did? He went out and got reviews. Does this sound familiar? How important are reviews in your business? This is 1979. He went out and got reviews from Runner's World magazine. He got 3 5-star reviews. So this all of a sudden got him what? Attention, right?
Yep.
So next, he gets a distribution deal in the United States. Third, he goes into the white space, as he calls it. He goes into space where no one else is in. Does it sound familiar? A little bit like the X Factor? All right. And he does something called aerobics shoes. But here's how he caught his big break. Jane Fonda wore his shoes on national television. And the revenues went from $9 million in 4 years to $900 million.
Wow.
They even eclipsed Nike in the mid 80s as one of the largest as the largest shoe company in the world. They did pull back, and he had sold the company since. So they have pulled back considerably compared to Nike, probably $100 billion to like $3.5 billion. But the fact is, it was just a phenomenal story. What's old again is new again. Reviews are important, absolutely critical. Influencers can be important. Local influencers can be important as well. And when we talk about that, here's the funny thing. I asked Joe, I said, Joe, did you pay Jane Fonda to wear those shoes? And he said, no, she paid for her own shoes. But you can see what's old again is new again. I think that's a fascinating story. Joe Foster comes up a few times throughout the book, as I've gotten to know him pretty well. We've had a lot of conversations, and he's coming to my book signing tonight, actually, at Barnes & Noble in Fort Lauderdale. So we're pretty excited about that.
That's awesome. I think, secondly to the reviews, for everybody listening, social proof is the greatest way to sell anything of yours. Having testimonial videos, content, or anything that you can post to show somebody just what you do or the impact of what you do, and hearing it from someone else.
And also, like, what I've learned through this process of, people who've done reviews for Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, is that doing video reviews can have a pretty significant impact. And now Amazon, when you do a review on Amazon, you can actually upload a video, and that gives it higher priority as well. And people love to see more than just read. They love the visual. So don't underestimate the power of videos and how that can make a difference with your business.
Yeah, Colin, this is so far the most jam-packed episode. I can't wait to read this book. Truly, that's awesome. Let's dive in a little bit as far as what are some of your top stories that taught you these lessons that were an ultimate, I never am going to learn this again because this happened.
Well, let me tell you, when it comes to local business hacks, I think we figured that out. We run an incubator here called Startups Club. And so I actually, 6 years ago, took my Tesla. It was a Model X. It was one of the first to come out. And we wrapped it with Startups Club all around the vehicle. Second thing I do is we wear our shirts, our swag everywhere, whether it's a trade show, whether I'm going to lunch, I'm in an elevator. And I can't tell you how many people have said, "Oh, what's Startup Club?" And they point to my car. They get me to roll down the windows. I've had that happen about like 20, 30 times.
Awesome.
They literally stop me. They're at the red light. "Oh, what's Startup Club? How do I get that? How do I do that?" And then second, I'm in an elevator. They'll do the same. Well, one of the hacks for trade shows we talk about in the book, we have a chapter in the book called Minor Majors. Minor little bit of effort, major impact. And these are the types of things you want to do in a small business because you don't have a lot of resources, a lot of money. So one of the things, here's an interesting story. My son was going to college for architecture, and the pandemic had occurred, and he went up in Canada. He never got into an in-person class until the third year in college.
Wow, that's
right?
sad.
Now, first day of class, he goes in. I call him up afterwards and I said, "Quinn, where did you sit in the class?" He goes, "Dad, not only did I sit in the front row, I sat closest to the professor." And this is one small decision that he makes in his life that can have a major impact. Now, why? Because one, you're now closer engaged to the professor. All the people you study with are hanging out in that front row. You are who you surround yourself with. Well, we took this right into trade shows as well. So when we go to a trade show, the staff, we all wear the same shirts. We go in, we sit in the very front row closest to the speaker. And guess what? At least 50% of the time, they're looking down at, our business or the thing we're trying to promote. And by the way, this company does the following, So there's those type of things. If you wear your swag, I know sometimes my family can be irritated by it. You're always driving around. Everybody, I can't tell you, hundreds, thousands of people have seen that car. Another local hack is the sign. And it's going to sound so basic. Actually putting some money into a sign. So I talked about an Airbnb business, right? We put in a really nice sign on the island because everyone's booting around, and we called the Airbnb, the beach house. It's right on the beach, facing the Gulf of Mexico. We called that Airbnb Sunset Escape, and we put the domain name www.sunsetescape.club. So now you have a connection to be able to read the domain name, actually go book the listing. All right, it's right on the front sign, and it looks very, very nice. Naming itself is also another hack. Just coming up with a name. Now, what I would recommend is that if you are ever naming a product, a service, a business, always go to the TESS database, TESS, and search the trademark. It's absolutely free and takes seconds to do. Just go to TESS and search for that name, because if someone else has a trademark, you'll have to change that name eventually. And it happened. I was working with a startup. For 2 years they had launched a brand. It was for weighted blankets and all these e-commerce products. And then we discovered that they had a trademark. They had to change their name, and it cost them thousands and thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars in equity and brand equity, etc. You want to get your name straight from the very beginning. So check the database, go register the domain name. Don't be afraid to pay $2,000, $3,000 for a great domain name. They are not as expensive as you think, but you can get some great brandable domain names. I just sold mugs.shop. I have a lot of domain names too, so I listed some of them on GoDaddy. Mugs.shop, I sold it for $3,000. Right, so I presume it's going to be a shop that sells mugs on the internet, and someone had bought that domain name. There are a few ideas there. We cover dozens of ideas in the book about what kind of hacks, growth hacks, or minor majors can you do in your business as well.
That's awesome. I'm excited to see the Tesla when we're done.
Yeah.
Colin, obviously, congrats to you on all the success and building the team. Outside of this door is a really awesome incubator that you've created.
Thank you.
Talk to me a little bit about how do you award a space to somebody in here, or what are the questions or the answers that you look for when partnering with someone?
Absolutely. So the fact is, I've evolved. I no longer am the CEO of any of my companies. I am now more of a coach, and I work directly with these companies. I've invested in most of these companies. In fact, we didn't even allow outside companies into this building until about 8 months ago, when we began to realize, well, we've got some extra space, so why don't we just allow others to come in and rent office space? So we do rent desks. It's another hack. Here we go again. When you started me thinking about hacks, you want to increase your chances of succeeding at a startup? One of the things you can do to increase your chances is simply join an incubator or a community, even startup club on Clubhouse. Get on there and talk to people, get to know people, share your ideas, your challenges. You're going to make contacts. We do an incubator at the Alan Levan Center in Fort Lauderdale. And that's at the NSU, Nova Southern University. And it's 10 sessions. I open with the first session. And we actually open with the 4 sticky note business plan, which is in the book. But there are 10 different sessions that you go through, including perfecting your pitch, actually making pitches, meeting lawyers, accountants, also meeting potential investors, learning about government funding. And this is all for free.
That's awesome. The
days of doing a startup out of your garage by yourself at your home are over. A startup, it takes a village to raise a startup. It really does. And you can get a lot of free help. We just interviewed the lady who runs SCORE. SCORE is an organization run by the SBA. And this is just phenomenal. I almost can't even believe this, but since it's coming from the government, I'm assuming it's real. I don't know. We won't go there. But the fact is, they have 10,000 volunteers.
Wow.
Volunteers. And they're mentors.
Awesome.
She says a startup is 3 times more likely to be successful if they have a mentor.
Oh, yeah.
These are the kind of stuff, and it's free.
It's awesome.
There are so many free things you can do as a startup. And we cover a lot of that in the book.
I think it's funny how, the SBA and the U.S. government does that. I travel international all the time. We have teams in 14 countries, and it's funny how whenever I'm international and somebody says, "Oh, you're American, home of the entrepreneurs." That's been this new thing over the last couple of years. Ever since COVID, I think that's been a new thing that I hear is, "Oh, I love it there. You guys support new business all the time. There's more entrepreneurs in America than anywhere." And, maybe this is a great resource for that. And it's really awesome. So tell our listeners, Clubhouse, Fridays, 2 p.m.
Yeah, so we do a show on Clubhouse every Friday, 2 p.m. We usually have different guest speakers or different topics, but we like to have an open mic. So come on stage and join us. We're now doing LinkedIn audio every 3 o'clock, which is going to be actually doing our first this Friday. Okay,
Awesome.
So being honest, this is our first one on LinkedIn audio, and we don't know how many people are going to show up, but the show is titled Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, Open Mic. So if you have experience starting a business, scaling a business, exiting or repeating that, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from experts like you, and you can share that with others in the community. And if you want to ask a question of me, I'm happy to answer a question or a question of anyone else who's on the panel that day or a guest speaker. We're trying to bring as many speakers as possible to Clubhouse and LinkedIn Live or LinkedIn Audio. And the only way to find out about those speakers, though, really, is to go to startup.club and sign up to the mailing list. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Colin C. Campbell. And of course, the book is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible's coming out hopefully this week. It's supposed to be out this week. You can get it anywhere. And of course, if you like the book, pay it forward and give us a nice review. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, listeners. Definitely get your hands on Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. Colin C. Campbell on LinkedIn and socials. Clubhouse, Fridays, 2 o'clock. And yeah, stay tuned to next week's episode, and we really appreciate the follow. Hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll definitely be having another episode with Colin in due time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Well, we've been lucky, very lucky. Just yesterday, we hit #1 spot for new release.
That's awesome. Thank you, Colin. Thanks, listeners all over the globe. We love you.
Thank you so much. That's it for this week's episode. I hope you found it helpful. Be sure to head over to our site, local-business-hacks.com, to check out the show notes and send me questions or ideas for future episodes. If you want to grow your business, just like the people you've heard from here, follow Local Business Hacks Podcast and tune in for new tips, tricks, and tactics. Until next time, thanks for listening and keep hacking.